Hey all my little peoples out there. I just wanted to go into detail today about what shape building is in Adobe Illustrator. We're going to use this assignment right here in order to build different shapes, to create different looks, and to create different vector graphics. Now the first thing you're going to notice at the top is shape building here, and that's what we're going to start off doing, is using multiple shapes that you see over here on the left and then building this little icon here. If you move down, you'll see a different document, a different artboard that has just the basics of how to create your shapes, which we've gone over a little bit, but just to show a little more detail. And then we're going to use those different shapes that you can create to create this little robot icon here. I'm going to give you the steps. You're going to show me you were paying attention by creating your own little robot down here in your own little color. I've added some helpful shortcuts over here on the right hand side and an example of how this final logo should look like at the top. So first, let's go into this artboard. So if you will, click on it one time and then hit Command 0, and that should zoom you into it. Let me get me to the top here. View, float on top. Alright, so using your shape builder tool, you can use a lot of different shapes here to create alternate shapes. So even though if you look over here in our tools panel, we have rectangle, ellipse, polygon, star, and line, we can use these tools to create different types of shapes. And the way we're going to do that is by using the shape builder tool. That's right here. Shift M is the shortcut. Now we're going to use this tool to create the looks that we're trying to build, but we're going to have to start at the top using our selection tool. V is our selection tool. So we'll need to select whatever shapes we want to affect first. So this is called lassoing, clicking, holding, and dragging over shapes. If I click on these individually, you can tell I have a circle and I have a square rectangle here. I want to merge these two into one single shape, kind of like we did with the Android logo to start with. So I'm going to lasso to select both of these. I'm going to hit Shift M on my keyboard, and that'll get me my shape builder tool. Now what you'll notice if you hover over this icon is that you get this little cross hatching pattern. And what this is doing is it's kind of showing you what section of the shape you're in. And even though these are two shapes, you can see it's kind of separated it into three based on where it's overlapping. Now if I click right here on one of these spots, you'll see I start to draw a line and you'll see it turns red. If I move that down, it'll select the next shape in the batch. If I continue moving down, it'll select the last one. This is how I'm going to merge all of these shapes into one single shape. Now that's pretty cool for what we're looking for, but we want to do something a little different with this. So let's look at these circles here. These circles, what I want to do is I want to create this eye shape that we have here, this kind of pulled down ellipse that we have. Now I can see that I don't have that in either one of them, but if I select both, I'll see right here in the middle section that I now have that. So I'm going to grab my shape builder tool here and I'm going to kind of look and hover over top of. Notice that it's got a plus symbol underneath this, meaning if I click and drag down here, it'll add all of these together. Now, we might have remembered from Photoshop that by holding Shift, we get add, and holding Option or Alt on a PC, we get subtract. So if I want to subtract a shape instead, I can hold Option and click right here. And that'll delete that shape entirely. And just to show you, I pull those off, and now that's deleted that shape. Now I can do that in reverse. So Shift M, I can hold Option, and I can delete the top and bottom sections here, leaving me just that eye shape. Or if you wanted to keep all of these shapes, you could just click on each individual one and it'll separate them individually as well. So I can keep my two little half moon shapes and I can have my eye shape. However you want to do it is not going to bother me one bit. I'm going to go back, Shift M, I'm going to hold Option or Alt, and I'm just going to delete these other two, leaving me just this eye. Now, over here, I want to create the little half moon shape that you have inside of the eye here. And I'm going to do that in a very similar way. I'm going to select both of these shapes. I'm going to hit Shift M to select my shape builder tool. And I can see that this is that little half moon that I'm looking for. So just by creating two separate circles, I'm able to create not only an eye shape, but a moon shape as well. So playing around with your shapes is a good way to create new shapes that you might not be able to draw out perfectly. Now for me, I'm going to click right here on that half moon. I'm going to click off, and then I'm going to drag that shape over. And I'll delete the remainders. Now, if you followed along, you should be able to match my example. Drag your eye on top of the shape, drag your circle on top of the shape, and I'll just delete the extra here. Drag your moon shape into the eye. Now should it disappear, remember it may be underneath it. Object, arrange, bring to front. So if it comes over and it looks like this, I can either bring that to front or I can click on this shape and send it back. Excuse me, that had a fill on it on one of these two here. I'll take that fill off. And there it is. So it's all about kind of troubleshooting what you have. Last, I'll take this little blue shape, I'll drag it to the corner. Again, notice that it comes up above the eye. If I click on that, object, arrange, send to back, it'll move it back behind that eye shape. So as simple as that, we're able to create our different looks. And of course, if we want to cut out that extra little area, I can select all three of these shapes, the central eye, the moon shape, and the eye, and I can bring all three of these above at the same time, filling this back with white if that's what I want to do. Now if that goes away, I can click on all three of these shapes and send them to back, so I can see everything. So it's all about kind of playing around with it and seeing what shapes are where in the hierarchy, and understanding that if you're not seeing a shape, what's happening is that shape is above or below one of your other shapes. So see if you can create this little logo. Once done with that, move down with me. Now here we are going to create some very basic shapes. You can see we're looking at a rounded square, a triangle, and then just a couple of shapes kind of stacked on top of each other. There's nothing really complicated here. We're going to start with our rectangle tool. M is the shortcut for your rectangle tool. And I want you to draw a rectangle of whatever color with no stroke you would like. Now, if you're clicking and dragging and using these smart guides, you'll see the measurements in the bottom right corner, and that will allow you to kind of move things how you want it to be. You can also hold Shift on your keyboard, and regardless of where your mouse is, it'll create a perfect square for you. So I want you to have a fill of whatever color you would like it to be. Okay, I'm going to stick on yellow here. Now, I want you to click off, so click in this gray area anywhere, and then click back on that shape. This is the difference between it being not selected and selected. Anytime you have a shape selected, you're going to get these little anchor points on the outside. This is called a bounding box. And with this bounding box, we can move, manipulate, or change this however we want. You also notice that in the middle of these shapes, there are these little circles, and you see this curve shape come underneath my selection tool. If I click and hold on that, dragging to the center, I can curve the corners of that however much I want until it turns into a circle even. So I'm going to place it about like that and create my rounded rectangle. Simple enough. Now down here for your triangle tool, or your triangle shape, I want you to select your polygon shape, and I know it doesn't look like a triangle, but I'll show you why. Select this polygon shape, and I want you to click, hold, and drag from the center out a polygon. Now there's a couple of ways to do this. I don't want you to release yet. If you have released, remember Command Z will take you back. You can always go back. I'm going to click down on my arrow on my keyboard, and that allows me to go up or down in shape sides that I have for a polygon. I need 3 sides here, so I'll go down until it's at its triangle. I'll hold shift so it's got a flat, even bottom area, and then I'll let go. Now, one cool thing, I'm going to get my selection tool and kind of move it down. One cool thing about this is if you look, there's this little slider right here. And if I click and drag that down, I can create more sides to this shape right here even after it's made. So I'm going to grab that slider, drag it up so that I've only got 3 sides. You'll notice it also has this ability to curve the corners here. If you would like, again, always down to a circle. But I don't want that. I want to keep a straight triangle. Now you'll notice you see your bounding box a little better here. This bounding box allows you to warp or alter your shapes however you want them to be. So if you want them to be tall, if you want them to be short and fat, you get that option here. But just so you know, that bounding box is what's going to help you create your different shapes. This works very similar to free transform in Photoshop, and in InDesign everything's kind of built around a bounding box. So getting comfortable with this bounding box and how you can rotate or change sizes of your setup is a good thing to kind of get used to now. So now we're going to go down to this shape. And we're going to create this using some very basic shapes. A circle at the top, holding L. I'm going to hold Shift and Option to be able to drag from the center. I'm going to get my polygon tool, or if you want, you can copy and paste the triangle from above. Notice that as I start to draw out here, it's already set to a triangle. It does that because it's always going to make the last shape that you created. So make sure the shape that you have is the one that you want. If not, again, you can always come into that little bar, which I'm a little far here, that little bar, and change it how you want. So I'm going to drag this into place, and I'm going to use my bounding box to kind of shrink this up to match the drawing. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm looking for close, not perfect. If you want it perfect, I know there's a lot of perfectionists in class, you can. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to get my rectangle tool, and I'm going to create my 2 base rectangles. Again, nothing complicated. Now the challenge for today is the robot. So let's go look at the robot over here. Now the robot up here, if you look, is basically just what we just created. It's triangles, it's rectangles, it's circles. That's it. Look throughout the whole thing, you'll see nothing different. Now, the trick here is how you're going to place certain shapes on top of other shapes. So remember, the last shape you created is going to be on top. So let me give you an example using the arms of this robot down here. So first I'm going to create the way I think you should. Start from the bottom and build upwards. So I'm going to create a circle right here, and I'm going to make my robot yellow as well. And then I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to create another circle, and you'll notice right here it says center, so it'll kind of smart guide lead you into the right direction. And I'll make another circle. Now in this circle I'll have to change the fill so that it's something different, so that you see a difference, right? So if you look here, there's my general buildup. After I've created one, I can always duplicate this. Hold Option, click and drag like I just did there. Shrink it down, holding Shift and Option. And then this is where the problem will lie. When I come in to make my rectangle, if I go over top of the white, you'll notice that it covers that white area. Pause, let me turn it yellow. And you'll notice it covers that white area. Whereas on the bottom it doesn't, because my shape didn't go that far. If that happens, Object, Arrange, Send to Back, or just kind of wiggle it down so that it's not impeding your look that you're trying to go for here. Now, copying and pasting. If I've got one arm, what's the point in me building an entirely different arm using shapes? I can just copy and paste the whole thing. So I'm going to select all of my shapes, holding Shift and clicking on each one, or lassoing to select all at once. I can hold Command or Control on a PC and tap C, and then Command V or Control V on a PC to paste. And that'll create my whole second arm, no need to rebuild, right? Right here at the top, if you look, I've got these eyes. I've got two right here, circles already made. Instead of Command C and Command V, this time I'm going to hold Option down, or if you're on a PC, Alt is the shortcut. Drag that right to the eyes. I might need to shrink it down a little bit, but you can see how quickly you can start to build this. Now your general problems are always going to come into how do you line up your hierarchy. So if I decide to make the face here, notice it covers everything below it. That creates a real problem, and I'm not going to want that, right? So I want to send this behind. I'm going to make it orange so you can see. And I'm going to curve the corners because it was in the original. But I want to send this behind the eye. The eye is there. It's just underneath this shape. You can see it right there. It's just underneath. This shape's above it. It was the last shape made. So I'm going to go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. And when I do that, there are my eyes on top. So what I want you to do is I want you to spend just a little bit of time here playing around creating this robot. This robot is all circles, triangles, and squares all the way through. You'll have to round the rectangles. I want you to make it as colorful, change the colors on as many shapes as you want. Try to leave the stroke, which is right here, on all of your shapes off just for this exercise. We'll go into strokes a little bit more in detail later. But I want you to build this robot and make it your own. Make it something unique, make it something interesting. When you're done, I want a screenshot of just this robot. Show me you were able to make this robot. Show me how colorful you can be or how interesting you can make your robot. If you want to add different things to your robot, knock yourself out the park. I don't mind it. I think it looks good. Once you've done that, take a screenshot of this, turn it into lesson 1 for this week, and look forward to seeing what you do in lesson 2. Thank you so much. I hope y'all are doing well out there. Take care.